I just going to talk to you about the church for a minute and talk to you about kind of where we're headed, where we're going, and what we're doing. You know, crunching bowl. You know, bowl of crunching bowl. And so, as a church, we have an opportunity to go on a journey we've never been before. It's up to us. Amen. We can continue to do what we do and continue to stay in that rut that we've done since 1959. Or we can continue to move forward. My pastor, I don't know if you guys saw the post I put, the pastor, Harry Ford, turned 88 years old. Monday or Tuesday? Monday, I think. So it's 88 years old Monday. 88 years old. He was in his 40s when I first started coming to church here. It's been a while. It's been a long ride. I can't express to you how ready I am to be doing what it is God's called us to do and be what we're supposed to be. And I can't express to you how frustrating it is that we're not there. And it just, I was talking with Dean a little bit yesterday, David, I think yesterday, a little bit about, and we're in the fellowship hall moving tables so I could clean the nasty carpet in there. And so I cleaned it, and we're moving the tables, and talking a little bit about how frustrating it is to have to wait. I'm not a waiter. I don't like waiting. I'm not very patient. I want things done yesterday. I try to be long-suffering, but sometimes long-suffering suffers. And sometimes I forget the long and just suffering. And so I have a hard time waiting. I have a hard time when doors shut in my face and I go, okay, God, what's going on? I have a hard time when things just don't happen like they should happen and like I think they should happen. But we as a church need to continue on our journey. God's placed in our grasp a place that we've never gone before. I believe people are hungry for a real move of God. Amen. Suzanne, don't let me forget your prayer request before we get out of here. Okay? I think people are ready for a real move of Jesus, not just a religious exercise, and not just come to church and leave church the same way as they came in. But I think that people are really ready for a move of God.
Amen.
I think that the harvest is ripe and ready. I think that a lot of times that we perceive that nobody cares about God, and that's not true. I think that they just don't care about a false, fake experience, but they're looking for a true experience with God. They're looking for a real thing. They're not looking for a place to go and congregate together, and they're not looking for another place to have friends over. They're not looking for another place just to be over and have just food and another excuse for that. I don't think that's what people are looking for. I think people are looking for a true, genuine experience with God that changes their lives. I think they're looking for a life-changing experience, not just a place to go to church to feel safe and comfortable. I really feel like that people have so put a stigma on church that they are almost uninterested in the church building. But they love what the church stands for. What do you mean by that? This is what I mean by that. They're disinterested in coming into church and being part of another group. But they're interested in seeing what we say we have. You with me? Okay. They're interested in seeing an example of God really being who God really is. They're looking at someone who is simply, truly be who God has called them to be and really be what God says in His Word we can do. I think that people are really looking for a sign and a wonder to see God really be God in somebody's life in order to be a testimony so they can be sure The church is not just another building filled with people congregating together, drinking bottles of water, eating hot dogs, leaving the same way they came in, and nothing ever changing. If that's what church is, then I'm with them. I don't want to be just another congregation of people. Just come together and sing a few songs and talk about things that God can do, but never see the exploits of the things that God can do. I'm with them. I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste God's time if we are not going to do what we say we can do. Wayman Ming used one of my examples the other day. I think he watched me on YouTube. Because I didn't get that from anybody. That was my example. Which is this. We're great about getting in a huddle and calling plays. And never executing a play. You'll never win the Super Bowl by calling a play. You'll win the Super Bowl by executing the play that was called. I said a few weeks ago, or a few services ago, the difference between us and Life Church, Elevation Church, Hillsong, whatever, is that they do what they say they're going to do. We talk about what we're going to do. They just do it. Fall on their face or not, they just do it. Now I understand that they have more people, I understand they have more money, but they didn't always. They didn't always. We're great about talking about what God's going to do, but we're not real good at showing what God's doing. Preach on, preach, unbelievable. People are hungry for a real move of God. They're hungry for the real Jesus, not just religious exercise. Not looking for the typical religious experience, which is this. I come to an altar, I get saved. I go back to my pew, I feel good. God has taken away my sin, and I don't discount that at all. He has. He has taken away your sin. But then I go to a pew, and I sit until someone taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, would you do this or would you do that? And if nobody ever taps me on the shoulder, I feel like they don't like me, they don't want me. And I exit the same church that I came into because I feel like I'm not needed or desired. If I am needed or desired and I do this job, then I start feeling like, well, they just want me to do stuff. Typical religious experience. I don't really ever win a soul to Christ. I'm not here to beat you up. I'm just here to kind of talk about the direction of church. I don't really win a soul to Christ. I don't ever really do anything for... I'm busy, but I'm not really discipling or being discipled. I'm just hanging out at the church. You with me? I'm just at the church doing stuff. I promise you, I've been here since this morning, and there's just not enough hours in the day to do stuff. There's just not. Now, when I ran to the store, got some stuff for tonight, we had everything ready to go that we could possibly have ready to go, and then I looked up, it was 4 o'clock, and I hadn't had a shower and ready to come to church or anything. I'm still in shorts and a t-shirt and trying to get stuff done. I have to return the cleaner, and I had to do all that stuff. And I looked up, it's 4 o'clock, and I think, man, where did this 8 hours go? Where did it go? We can stay busy, but are we being effective in our busyness? Stuff has to be done. Yes, you have to. The carpet has to be cleaned. The hot dogs have to be made. The chili and cheese have to be heated. The hot dog buns have to be bought. The Kool-Aid has to be made. The tea that I made had to be made because I needed sweet tea. It's because it was good. It was good. There's some left. Those things have to be done. Brother Billy came down and checked and made sure all the oil was right on the vans and made sure that all the fluids were good, the tires were, everything was ready to go. I love it. It leaves the sticky notes. And, everything's checked off and, hey, have a great day. Love that. Man. Brother Billy comes and helps us out, takes care of our vans, makes sure that everything's just ready to go. So when Sister Heike or Sister Kim or me or my wife or April get in a van, we don't have to worry about whether it's going to break down on us because there's not any oil in it. And I'm very grateful for that. Stuff has to be done. Things have to be done. Somebody had to go out to Maud and out to the Maud Y and pick them up. And somebody had to go to Randolph Drive, and somebody had to go over to Highway 9, and somebody had to go over to Timmons Street. Somebody had to go get people and had to go to 9th Street. Gabe, 9th Street. Gabe, wake up. 9th Street. 8th Street. 9th Street. Somebody had to go to 9th Street and get Gabe and his sister and his brother. Somebody had to go East Street. Somebody had to go get them. Those things have to be done. Somebody had to plan and sing. And somebody had to work on what the message was tonight. And somebody had to do, all those things have to be done. And I'm not belittling any of those things. They all have to be done. But in some areas, I think we're just busy. We're just busy. I know in my experience as a temple appraiser for a long time, we get caught up. We get caught up in what we've always done. We've always done it. We've just always done it. We've just always done it. And so it's almost like we're robots. At a certain time, an alarm goes off and we start doing things. We have to get it done. We have to get it done. Have to get it done. Have to get it done. And at a certain time, we have to be there. At a certain time, we have to do. We're like robots. But I don't want a typical religious experience. I don't want my family to grow up in a typical religious experience. I want them to grow up with people waiting to get in the building. Because there's something for them in the building. I want them to see church as more than just simply coming together as a group of people. I want them to see that God is more than just a church and more than just a song and more than just a message and more than just busy work. I want them to see who God really is. My family's growing up and I'm growing older, and I want my family to see God for who He truly, really is, and not just simply a religious experience. I don't want them to just see Him as a Christ on a crucifix. That's not who He is. I don't want them just to hear words of a song and maybe a melody or a chord that makes you cry. I want you to know who He is. I love that step from F to F minor. That's just a good church step. And it always moves me. I love it. I love that step. It's just a good emotional, you know why they use music in movies? It draws emotions out of you. Music can draw things out of you. But I want God to be more than that. I don't want the typical make me feel unworthy that I come to an altar and cry. And the same when I get up at the altar, as I went down there. No, just because you cried at an altar doesn't mean anything. I've been at church camp a lot, and I've seen a lot of kids cry at the altar, and then, within 3 or 4 weeks, they're not been in church, much less at the altar. I'm all for tears at an altar if it's a heartfelt cry. Yeah. If it's a sin-sick cry of repentance, I'm all for that. Yeah. If it's a sin-sick cry out to a loving God and God is working in your life, I'm all about that. I love that. If the tears are from a reaction of God touching your life, I'm all about that. Yeah. But I just don't want it to be a typical religious exercise of in and out, in and out, in and out. week goes by, months go by, years go by, and it's just the same. I'm not about that at all. Many see the altar as a place of shame or blame. I don't. I'm weird. Altar to me is a life-changing place. I'm not worried about whether you think something's wrong in my life and I go at an altar. I'm just willing to admit there's something messed up in my life I need help with. You're too proud to go to an altar. I'm not. I'll fall on my face at an altar. I don't care. I really don't care if you blame, oh, what he did. You know what? I'm so far beyond that. When people think about if I did something wrong, I could care less if you think I did something wrong. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. I don't care. I'm going to go to the altar. If I feel like God has me go to the altar, I'm going. God draws me, I'm going. I'm going, and I'm going to lay before the Lord. I was there today. And by the way, I didn't sin today, but I went to the altar. But I did go to the altar today for this service tonight.
Yes, God.
I went to the altar for you today. Because that's my job. No, because I love you.
Yes.
I care about you. And I care about your families, and I care about what goes on in your life, and I care about the message you're in, and I care about the message you just got out of and you're trying to walk through. I care about you. I don't see the altar as that place. I see it as a place for those who don't have a good that don't have good sense sometimes. They keep their mouth quiet. There's something that they can constantly make the wrong decision and they can get it right at an altar. I don't look at the altar as a place of doing wrong. I look at it as a place of getting things right. That's how I look at it. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's just the way I look at it. Many feel it's a place of them. They can't go there because they're leaders, and man, I can't go to the altar because they'll think I did something wrong. Listen, God give me a group of leaders that will follow at an altar. God give me a group of leaders that will come to the altars before service starts and weep and wail at an altar. God give us souls lest we die. God give me leaders that are not so busy that we are busy doing things that we forget that it's about prayer and not about stuff. You think we ought to not be prepared? Oh, I think you ought to be prepared. I think we ought to be prepared. But that's what the days before service are for. Right. Not the 5 minutes before service. Right. If you're not prepared before 5 minutes before service, you're not prepared. I don't care who you are or what you think. Many feel it's not a place for them to go because they're leaders, and if you go to as a leader, then someone's going to look bad upon you. I don't care. I would much rather you go to the altar and cry out to God. That they would call their own private prayer meetings, and they would come, and no one but themselves. They would seek God and God to move on our behalf and not just their behalf. Brother Ming said something I've never caught before. And then he said this, and it clicked in my spirit, and you'll have to forgive me, but it kind of messed me up a little bit. But when the disciples came to Jesus and they said, teach us how to pray. They didn't go separately and say, teach me how to pray. They said, teach us how to pray. We don't know how to pray, Jesus. Teach all of us how to pray. Because it wasn't just about what they needed, it was about what the whole group needed. They didn't understand what he meant by prayer, and it clicked in my spirit. I've never thought of that way before. I just assumed that they all didn't know how to pray, but that's not it. They said, we can pray, but teach us how to pray. We can call on your name, but teach us how to pray. And I thought, that's pretty good. I never thought of it that way. In my life, this is my life. The souls of humanity are calling me. I wish I could translate that to you. I wish I could put it on a screen and show you what that's like to live with that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I wish I could describe to you the feeling that is. The pressure that is. And I'm not asking you for your sympathy. I'm just telling you, I wish I could show you somehow. I wish I could reach into my mind and pull it out.
Yeah.
Put my hands in my head, oh no. I wish I could do that. and show you exactly what I'm talking about. That for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever I dream about it, I sleep and I wake up and I think about it, and what I can do to make it better so that souls will not die and go to a devil's hell, but the souls of humanity are calling me all the time. Yes. There's never a time when it's not on the back part of my mind or the front part of my brain. There's never a time when your families are not constantly on my mind. When I'm not trying to find a way to make church more, how can I say this, more, I don't even know the word to use, to make it to where it's more, not relative, but, compelling, draw them, compel them to come to the house of the Lord.
More joyful.
And make it more, I don't know how to make it. Anyway. Those are all good words, but that's the right word. I'll think of it in a minute. More relational. To where it's about you and Jesus and not about you and who's sitting beside you. More personal, I guess, is a good word. More. I'm always trying to find a way to where it's more relational. It's more. It's that we matter. Amen. No church that I know of has ever really gotten that. We never really get that it's a relationship issue that most Christians have. It's not a knowledge issue. We know about Jesus. We know about what we're supposed to do. We know the rights and the wrongs, and we know the lefts and the rights, and we know the do's and the don'ts, and we know what God's called us to do. We know Jesus, but we know about Jesus, but we don't have a relationship with Jesus. And until you have a relationship with Jesus, he's a boring old dude that makes me have to be good. If that's your relationship with God, you've missed the boat. If that is what your concept of Jesus is, you've missed it. I'm not trying to be saved so I don't sin anymore. So I sin less. How's that? That's better? I'm not trying to be saved so I don't yell at my wife. Or I don't watch the wrong thing on TV. Or I don't go to some places I'm not supposed to go and say words I'm not. If that's your relationship with Jesus, then you've missed the boat. The point is not to try to make you sin light. The point of the whole thing is this, that you have a relationship with Jesus that makes you say, I don't want to do these things, not because Jesus said I can't, not because there's sin in my life, because I just don't want to sin. I just don't want to talk that way. I don't want to yell at my spouse. I don't want to watch those things on television. I don't want to be in those situations. Not that I can't, but I just don't want to. I don't want to go to the club. I don't want to cheat on my wife. I don't want to cuss. I don't want to drink. Not because I think God's going to send me to hell without an electric fan, but because I just don't want to. It's not in me. It's been washed away from me. Does that make any sense to anybody besides me? It's a relationship with Him. I'm in relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm not some little worm that I'm afraid that Jesus is going to step on me if I do the wrong thing. I know it makes a good song. But Jesus, He says that I'm a laborer and a co-laborer with Christ. Which means that Jesus won't do it without me, and I can't do it without Him.
Amen.
So He needs Not that he needs me to do what he wants to do, but he is wanting to be in relationship with me. Does that make sense with anybody? I hope it does. No church has ever really gotten it that when we care for souls, God moves mountains for a church and for you personally. Amen. When you truly care for souls, not just your own, not just your kids. It's amazing to me how many Christians plan their lives around their kids. It just amazes me. Maybe I thought you were called to more than that. My children are precious to me, and I absolutely adore them. But they're not the only souls that I'm concerned with. I can be more concerned with just more than them. It's okay. I'm not being a bad dad by not just spending all my waking hours with them. I've taught them the best I know how to teach them. And it may not be good enough. I don't know. But I've taught them the best I can teach them how to live for God. I've been an example. You guys have never seen me hit your mom, have you? Okay. Now, I've been very serious. Okay. Been very serious. No, I'm just teasing. But listen. I'm just kidding. Okay? So, listen. I've done my best to be an example of them. I can't do it, but there's somebody out there that I need to be an example to. Amen? Amen. Sometimes I want to knock the top half their heads off. Okay? Amen. Because I don't know why they just don't get it. I don't know why they don't get it sometimes. I don't understand. I don't know. At some point in their life it'll click. They'll understand. Oh, that's my dad. Oh, I get it. Yeah, no kidding. Now, I might be 75 years old when it clicks, but I'm going to, at least it'll click. When we care for souls, God moves mountains. For churches that cares for souls. I don't want to put anything on you, but I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to put that on you, Ricky Bobby, but I'm going to tell you something. Listen. The reason that God has moved in this church, and God has moved like He did, is because of caring for souls. And God's making preparation for us to care for people. That's the only reason. The reason that God has done what He's done in our lives, and the way God has moved in our church, is because of the leadership's heart for people. I'm telling you. If that were not the case, we'd still just be comfortable in here doing what we're doing and hanging out, just being in church and just doing our stuff. But God is more than that, and God has more than that, and God is praying for more than that. And I'm telling you right now that you may not believe it, and that's fine. You don't have to believe it, because as long as it's in my spirit and I'm actually being the pastor here, then God's going to let me do what I need to do for Him. But I'm just telling you that God is moving mountains. I've seen Him do it, and He'll do it again. If you don't know that song, you need to learn that song. He made a way where there was no way. And I'll see Him do it again. What is the heartbeat of God? John 3:16 is His heartbeat. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life. For God sent not His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through Him might be saved. It's not always about me. John 3:16 and 17. You need to go ahead and throw it back up there. I'm sorry. I said it too fast for you. For God so loved the world. Everybody knows that, right?
Yep.
That He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life. 17 is my favorite. For God sent not His Son into this world to condemn the world, but that the world through Him might be saved. Didn't say that all be saved, but they might be saved. They're given opportunity. In Matthew chapter, Ethan, you're going to have to get with me here. I'm going to just throw a bunch of them at you real fast, okay? Matthew chapter 9, verse 36. They're all going to be in Matthew for a little bit. Jesus had compassion on people. When He saw the multitudes, He was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and they were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Jesus had compassion on the multitudes. Why? Because they fainted. Why did they faint? Because they were scattered everywhere. Why were they scattered? Because they didn't have anybody to lead them.
Yeah.
The church, not being the church, has scattered many souls. Because we're afraid we're going to offend somebody. Well, where are you going to send them? Hell number 2? Where are you going to send them? We got to, boom. People are looking to be offended at all points. You can say hi to somebody and they're mad at you because you didn't say hello. I know you got a hello. No, you got a hi. Get over it. Okay. Matthew 14:14. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude. And he was moved with compassion toward them. And he healed their sick. That doesn't sound like church is normal to me. Amen. That sounds like something different. I read the New Testament church. I probably don't get involved in James and 1st and 2nd Peter like I should, because I get stuck in the Gospels and in Acts and 1st and 2nd Corinthians. I get stuck. Because I read the New Testament church and I try to find it in the American church and I can't find it. Okay. About to come to church on Wednesday night and I just preach what God gives me, man. But I read the New Testament church. I read the book of Acts, and I read 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and I read the letters that Paul wrote, and I read them, and I try to find what we do in them. Yeah. And yeah, we sing some hymns. We congregate, we eat. We try to help one another. I'm not saying we don't. I don't think we have all things common, but we try to help each other. If somebody has a need, we try to help them, right? We're not totally just cold-hearted. Too bad. I've got four TVs, and you need one. You can't have one. We're not just totally cold-hearted, are we? I hope not. I know somebody in this congregation that gave a car away to somebody actually that needs a car, and they just gave it to them. Yeah. In this church. Amen. I like that stuff. I like that stuff. Was it a brand new Lexus? No. But did they need a new Lexus? No. They needed somewhere to get from point A to point B. They didn't have any money to buy a car. And someone said, I got one. Here you go. Here's the keys. Here's the time. Have a good time. Knock stuff out. Be sure to answer. Okay. But I want to get shot. Okay. In this congregation of people sitting here right now, that happened yesterday. Jesus. I just try to find what they did. I try to find the power of God that moved there. Is it moving here? And I'm not saying it's not. I'm looking for it. Trying to find the prayer meeting. The day of Pentecost, they were having a prayer meeting. Waiting, tarrying on the Lord. Trying to find those that get up early and go seek God's face. Trying to find those that stand in the face of adversity and aren't afraid if their colleagues like them or not. Because they stand up for what's right. That's hard. You know it's hard to have a good report and a good name, because if you ever stand up for something, I thought they were a good guy. I guess they're not. No, I just disagree with you. Doesn't mean I hate you, I'm not mad at you, I just disagree with you. Mark 15:32. And Jesus called his disciples unto him. He said, I have compassion on the multitude, because they continue with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. I will not send them away fasting, lest they faint away. Did you get me, Ethan? 15:32. Matthew. Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry, it wasn't my fault. There's not a word there. Listen, did Jesus call his disciples unto him and said, I have compassion on the multitude because they continue with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. I will not send them away fasting lest they faint in the way.
Yeah.
Church, can I tell you what this scripture speaks to me? How many times have people come to the house of God looking for something to eat and we send them away fasting?
Yeah.
Because we were worried about things that didn't feed them more than the Word of God that feeds them.
Yeah.
There's a song called Cleansed, and one of the lines of the song is, I sit at the table where the children are fed. They're given the word by the lamb and the bread. Sit at the table where the children are fed. They're given the word by the lamb and the bread. It's not just enough to come to the house of God. But there's people sitting here tonight, right now, or in this church, right now, that they're listening for something that will maybe help them get along the next couple of days. They're looking for something. They didn't even want to be here tonight. I don't know if God, how He moved, and it's 90 degrees up in that church for a reason. I don't know. Maybe one of you young people need to hear something from God. Maybe one of you older people need to see a young person besides me or somebody else and say, hey, you actually do have people that come to church on Wednesday night. This is just part of it. There's another 40 of them in the back. It's letting you know. You're not here alone. This is Matthew 18, 27 through 28. And the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion and loosed him and forgave him his debt. 28. But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants which owed him 100 pieces, and laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me what thou owest. That scripture means to me, I can accept God's forgiveness for me, but I can't accept it for somebody else. Oh, they're pieces of dirt. Well, what were you? Oh, but they've sinned greatly. What did you do?
Come on.
They never apologized. So? Who cares? That's worth going to hell over, isn't it? That they never apologized, worth going to hell over, isn't it? No. Not to me. I'm not. I tell people all the time, this is fun, but you know, I'm a tortilla guy, so I have to tell, I have to have tortillas checked in, and most of the time my stuff's right. Sometimes I'll forget and do something stupid, but I'll tell them all the time, so listen, I can promise you one thing. I'm not going to hell over some tortillas. I'll promise you that right now. I'm not going to lie to you about some tortillas. I promise you that. I didn't say I wouldn't put 12 instead of 10 on a ticket because I just hit the wrong button. But I'm telling you that I will not go to hell over some tortillas. And I will not go to hell waiting on an apology. That ain't never coming. Ain't going to happen. I refuse to be bitter, mad, hateful, mean. You can live that way if you want to, but not this way, God. I just promise you that right now. Matthew chapter 18, verse 33. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Matthew 18, 33. Shouldst not thou have had compassion on the fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee?
Yeah.
Church, give people a break. They're just people. They're just people. I looked up to them. They're just people. Doesn't matter who you looked up to or who you didn't look up to. They're just people. Give them a break. Things happen. Stupid things happen. I'm sure you never did anything stupid. I did. I'm glad somebody gave me a break. Matthew chapter 20, verse 34. And then we'll go 21 and 1. So Jesus had compassion on them and he touched their eyes. And immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him. Keep going. And when they drew nigh to Jerusalem and were come to Bethphage, unto the Mount of Olives, and Jesus sent 2 disciples. Keep going. Saying to them, go into the village over against you, and straightway you shall find an ass tied to a colt, loose them, and bring them to me. Now listen, stop for just a second. Listen. Jesus had compassion, and he touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight, and then they followed him. Then immediately after they were following him, he had told his disciples to go get the colt that was going to carry him into the city. So can I share with you just a second this, that Jesus will open your eyes to who he is if you'll simply have compassion on people in their lives. Because if you don't have compassion on people, Jesus it says in his word, if you will not forgive your brother, your Father will not forgive you. I didn't say it, Jesus did. And so we want to say that works for everybody else, but not for me, because bless God, I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, you did. You won't let it go. You won't say, God, please forgive me for my hatred for my brother and my sister. I don't hate them. Yes, you do. Because if you can't forgive them, you have hatred in your heart. That's good preaching for I don't care what day it is. If you have hatred in your heart, you cannot go to a glorious heaven. I don't care what preacher lied to you, and you think in your mind you can. It doesn't work that way. Mark 1 and 41. Mark 1 and 41. I'm about done. Someone said, thank God. I really am. And Jesus moved with compassion, poured forth his hand, and touched them, and said unto them, I will be thou clean. I am so glad that he had compassion on me and made me clean. I don't know about you, but listen, whenever I got saved, I felt squeaky clean.
Yes.
I felt good. And I felt whole. And I felt well. Aren't you glad that Jesus had compassion on you and touched you and put forth his hand and touched him and said unto you, be thou clean. Mark 5 and 19. Howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but said unto him, go home to thy friends and tell them the great things the Lord hath done unto thee, and had compassion on thee. You finding a theme? 6 and 34. Jesus, when he came out, saw much people, and he was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. I wonder what the church is supposed to be doing. It's a mystery, isn't it? Isn't it hard to understand? No, it's not. Compassion. Listen, number one, Jesus didn't say, be a fool and give everybody money. Never said that. I've not read that one time. Not one time I've ever read it where Jesus said, go to the city, get all the money out of the bank, and give it to a bunch of people who are drug addicts. Never saw that. What I did find is, have compassion on them. Teach them.
Yes. Amen.
Lead them.
Yes.
Feed them.
Yeah. Amen.
Bring them to me so I can touch them and they can be whole.
Yeah.
I read that. Okay, I'll go on.
Yeah. Amen.
Mark 8:2. It's repetitive, but you'll get there. I have compassion on the multitude because they have been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. Mark 9:22. And oftentimes it hath cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. What are you trying to say? Listen, here's the deal. The Spirit would often cast him into the fire and into the water and try to kill it. But they said, if you can do anything. There's people right now that are just so desperate. God, if you could do anything. If you could just do anything. I got a church across the street. I got a church down the road. I got a church everywhere. But Jesus, if you could just do anything. Have compassion on us and help us. I'm trying to reveal what goes on in my spirit all the time. I find this all the time in my life. I find something. Jesus, if you can do anything, have compassion.
Right.
And help us. Because we have to have you. Do I do everything right? No, I don't do everything right. If I did everything right, we would be further down the road. Luke 7:13. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said unto her, say it any differently. Sorry. That's rude. We're scratching my nose over here, but either that or we'll sneeze. So that I don't know how to say that any differently than this. That we've got to change our outlook to outside this church. It's not just about this congregation of people. It's not just about you, it's not just about me, it's not just about our kids, it's not just about whatever. We need to take a good look around us. Because I promise you there's a mother tonight weeping somewhere. And all she needs is Jesus to see her and have compassion on her and help her weep not. Luke 10:33, but a certain Samaritan, 10:33 of Luke, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, had compassion on him. Do I have any Samaritans in the house that will touch the one they're not even supposed to talk to?
Right.
Yeah.
The Samaritans and the Jews had no dealings with each other. Matter of fact, the Samaritans and Jews hated each other. They were half-breed Jews. They weren't real Jews. So they didn't like them. They weren't holy enough. They weren't righteous enough. They weren't good enough. Sound familiar? They didn't go to church. I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm trying to motivate. I'm trying to get you to understand where my heart is and where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to pick on you and yell at you. I'm just trying to... Sound familiar?
Yes.
And the Samaritan who wasn't even supposed to talk to this Jew had compassion on him because he's a human being with a soul. Luke 15:20. And he arose and came to his father when he was yet a great way off. His father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. It's a picture of what God does when we come home. So in a nutshell, what is God's heart? People. People are God's heart. Everything in this Bible is written so people can come to Christ. Not dogs and cats. Not the spotted owl or the whooping crane. But people. Showing people how to get to Jesus. The entirety of this book is written to make a way for us to get to God. All the books are written for people to show people how to get to God. What is the heart of God, people? When the church understands that people are the reason that the church exists, and not the church exists for people, then we'll be on the road to greatness. But we've got to understand that we don't exist because of them. Or, how did I say it? I said it wrong. But the church exists because of the people, not the people are for the church. Is that right? When the church understands that people are the reason for the church, and that the church doesn't exist for people, but the people exist for... Okay, but you understand what I'm saying? Okay. I keep messing it up. Let us think about it. We need to reflect on what we're supposed to be doing. We need to repent, and we need to refocus. It's not about us. And living in the limelight, the universal dream. Whatever that wishes. Let's put aside the other. Get a minute. Okay. Get over the fascinating. The revelation. The end of 19. But anyway. But it's been a long time. I want you to reflect on where God has brought you from. Don't you think somebody else deserves what you got?
Amen.
Another chance? Another opportunity? A way to clean up your life? A way to clean up your family? To heal? To be made whole? To be made well? Don't you think somebody else deserves that chance? We're not special. We just said yes, and somebody gave us an opportunity. Somebody gave us an opportunity to go to an altar. Somebody gave us an opportunity to meet Jesus. Somebody invited us to the house of God. Somebody maybe drove us to the house of God. Maybe somebody just gave us an opportunity. God has placed us here for a season and for a time. This is our season. This is our time. Remember where you used to be. Where were you at 5 years ago? Where were you at 10 years ago? Where were you at 30 years ago, 40 years ago when God found you, God brought you to an altar? Where were you at? I'm willing to bet you weren't where you are today. We repent of our lack of focus. Sometimes we're too busy to be focused. It's easy to be busy, especially in church. And there's always something to take care of. There's always something to do. There's always a phone call to be made. There's always a card to be sent. There's always a handshake and a hug. There's always something to be doing. But don't get so busy with the church that you forget to focus on what it's about. We exist because God's people. God's people don't exist because of us. God's got people. That's why we're here, is to help people.
That's right.
We're not here to get rich off of people. We're here to do what God's called us to do. I'm letting you out early tonight. You guys got such an easy break tonight. 8 minutes early. 8 minutes early.